Hello and welcome back to the Radioactive Ramblings podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
And I'm your other host, Chase.
First, I feel like we should address that we are back from our long hiatus. It's been a mix of scheduling issues and burnout and other personal issues going on here and there. But now we're back and we're better than ever, really, ready to start releasing podcasts again. Um Chase, It's it's been a strange month and a half, but we're here now, and yeah, are you looking forward to getting some podcasts back up and running?
Yeah, I'm excited to be back, finally recording again and um talking about the boys again.
Yeah, so we had originally planned on doing episode by episode coverage of the boys, but obviously that fell apart on us just a little bit. So we are going to do in this episode just a full like season review, talk about everything that was in those last few episodes that we didn't review, get a good picture of what's been happening, kind of give a wrap up to the season, and give you guys our thoughts. Chase, was there anything else you wanted to talk about in this episode? Did you want to focus more on like the last few episodes, or do we just want to do like a general season review?
I think we'll talk about the season as a whole for sure, but I think we're going to focus a little bit more on the episodes we missed covering cuz we have quite a comprehensive coverage of the other episodes.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
good plan.
Also, I kind of
And
want to talk about where I think the story of the boys is going in the next season, probably, which I think they said is going to be the last season, right?
yeah, they said that there's going to be one more season of the mainline series. In between then and now, there's going to be a new Gen V season, but they didn't say if that was going to be the last Gen V season. I don't know if they're having them like end at the same time or if they're going to keep Gen V going after. I guess we'll just have to see where those characters end up at the end of The Boys.
Yeah.
And they also announced a another spin-off series. Did you see anything about this?
I did not see that.
So, it's apparently Stormfront and Soldier Boy is going to be the spin-off.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's about like the beginnings of Vought. I don't know about this one. I feel like they might. I don't have high hopes for it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I feel like Stormfront and Soldier Boy are interesting characters for sure, but I don't know how they are going to be as like main characters.
Yeah, they're both such assholes. Like they're good as villains and complementary characters, but having them be the stars of their own show, it could be something a little bit different. Maybe they're just in it, but yeah, I don't know that I would really be that into a show where the two main characters are just straight up like racist, awful villains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know either.
Anyways, getting back on track. A lot of shows have wrapped up or are currently wrapping up right now, but the summer is far from over in terms of content. So send some emails over to radioactive at thelorehounds.com, head to the Lorehounds website and use the contact form, or leave us a voicemail. Voicemail tool is simple to use, and we can drop your feedback right into the pod. Now, for some of our previous episodes, we had, I believe it was one or two pieces of feedback that we recorded with and just weren't able to get out. We had some audio quality issues on our end and things like that. So um, we are just going to start a fresh slate here, and we're going to try and incorporate some of that feedback later on in the episode, just from what we recall from that.
Wait, what happened with the feedback?
There was so basically we got one voicemail that was really, for some reason it sounded fine when you listen to it just on your laptop, whatever.
I mean, we could just like summarize what they tried to say.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And Chase, you want to tell us about Discord?
I would love to. Everyone, please join us on Discord. There are channels set up for all the shows and projects this summer and great conversations you don't want to miss out on. So, check the show notes of this episode or any episode for the links to the Discord and all the affiliate podcasts.
Awesome. And now that we're back, we should probably get into some of the setup, the hot takes, just giving our general impressions on the second half of this season and how we thought it went. Let's start off with a quick synopsis. Boys Season 4 has ended with a bang and brought us the death of Victoria Newman, Butcher's super parasite, Homelander as the puppet master of the US government. With the boys kidnapped or on the run, there's almost no hope left for our heroes who have lost at every opportunity to stop the threat of Vought and the Soups. All right. And Chase, do you have any thoughts about where this season ended right off the bat? Oh, by the way, I'm going to switch around the order. This is now our spoiler section.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um so for this season, I honestly think it took an interesting turn cuz I thought it wasn't going to be as similar to the comics as it ended up being. Cuz like the butcher with like the superpower. So in the comics, all of the boys have like super strength cuz they took like a form of V that like didn't give them like crazy powers, but they all have super strength, so they're actually like able to kill soups that way. Um, so like seeing Butcher like have like real powers now is like kind of like very much like the comics, and him being so focused on like the genocide of the all soups is like also very much like the comics. I thought he was gonna. I mean, I think I kind of predicted it in our earlier episodes when I was talking about I think Butcher is going to be more on the evil side and in opposition to the boys by the end of the show. So I think that's kind of where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Butcher has been starting to lean that direction for a couple of seasons now where you can see him doing his whole anti-soup as a rule thing, and you had him with the soup virus, and he was really trying to find a way forward without falling into that darkness that's within himself. And by the end, once it becomes clear that Ryan's not going to help him in the immediate, and there's not a lot that they can really do about it, it feels like it just became too much for him, and he had to give in to that parasite in his brain, the Joe Kessler parasite, if you will.
I mean, I don't know if he had to. I mean, it did seem like it saved his life, but
Which I don't really fully understand how giving into the like genocidal tendencies saved him from the cancer killing him. Is it just because it might be because like Joe Kessler parasite, whatever we want to call that? I'm just gonna refer to his as to his beat up tumor as Joe Kessler from now on. So Joe Kessler's in his head, and maybe Joe Kessler is like slowly killing him with during that, and then stops slowly killing him after he gives in and does what Joe wants. I don't know. It's very murky on why that really saved him. Maybe it didn't save him and it just bought him some time, but that was confusing for me.
I think what happened is like him not giving into like the Joe Kessler like dialogue options is like him like subconsciously fighting against the parasite, and then him giving into it is like letting the parasite work its magic, so like the parasite is healing him now or some shit like that.
Yeah, that's a good theory that now instead of working against the parasite, I mean, it's basically a parody of Venom, so it's like the symbiote where it's working with Butcher now instead of working against him, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed that they gave him those powers. I think that they fit him pretty well. Now, for production details, really the only thing I have to say about this, because we talked about the production in earlier episodes, is about the critical reception of this season of The Boys. A lot of people have criticized the series' fourth season, some of them being like kind of ridiculous and offensive. reasons, which we're not going to talk too much about that because I think you all already get the gist. But there were a lot of like valid criticisms of this season that I saw. Like the ending was a little rushed, or there were just some things at the end there that kind of made me think as a viewer and seemed to make a lot of other viewers think that they might have lost the charm that they had in the first three seasons. Not so much the charm, but they've lost a little bit of that core of the show, which I guess is only natural for a show that's been going on for now 4 seasons, going on 5 seasons with spin-offs and things like that. There tends to be a little bit of burnout. Some of the characters felt a little different than how we were used to seeing them. Chase, any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, some of the characters, I mean, Frenchie, for example, felt pretty empty this season. I do kind of have a little bit of a hot take about the season. I thought it started off way weaker than it ended. Like, I think the last few episodes were much better than the first few. But yeah, I do agree with the fact that it feels like the season as a whole actually was a little rushed.
Yeah, which is strange because they took a lot of time in between the seasons. So, and the special effects looked great. So, it didn't feel rushed from maybe a like a technological standpoint or from Amazon rushing through things standpoint, but
A
the
writing
writing just felt.
standpoint for sure though.
Yeah. And do we know, was this one of the shows that got affected by the writer's strike? Like, did they maybe have to record some stuff with.
I mean, I would only have to assume, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a little bit weaker as a season, but I don't disagree with you that it started to get stronger towards the end. Maybe that's just because they started actually building up things. The first few episodes felt a little bit slow and like not a lot was accomplished. I don't know if you agree with that.
it feels like the first few episodes were directionless. That's the only way
Hmm.
I could describe it. Like things were happening, but I didn't like feel like those things were building towards anything until we got to like the episode with the virus, I feel like.
Yeah, which we can talk about the virus a little bit later, but I have some thoughts about the virus. Should we get into our hot takes this season?
Yeah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So I really loved Butcher's Venom-esque powers. Um, Even though I feel like they didn't quite suit him. We already talked about this, that I'm a little bit confused about whether or not he's still dying. But I put the Venom-esque powers under hot takes just because a lot of people were kind of pissed off that he didn't have the same superpowers that he had when he was taking Temp V. Um, I mean, I think that criticism is a little off just because we learn towards the end that he isn't really the one with superpowers, but it's his brain tumor with superpowers. So it makes a lot more sense as you go through the season and sort of learn some critical information. But I could see that as something people were upset about at the beginning. Um, we've talked about this one quite a bit as well, but the Frenchie and Kamiko romance. I mean, I don't know, man. It feels like they put a button on it and then just decided to walk it right back. It's too little, too late in my mind. They could have gone with the Frenchie and Kamiko romance earlier, or just stuck with not doing it all and having them gain a more platonic relationship. It
Yeah.
didn't.
It feels like it was written as like fan fiction. Like they spent like that whole first few episodes of the season with Frenchie and Kimiko basically being like sorry, I like see you as family and like I value our relationship deeply, but I don't think it's one of romance, and Frenchie being okay with that. And then they walk it all back and it's like, what are we doing? I don't
Right.
understand why we're ruining like the only good part about Frenchie writing this season. I don't.
Yeah, I don't really get it either. That was the one thing that kept me engaged with Frenchie. Like you said, the one good piece of his writing was this new relationship he was building with Kamiko that wasn't about him having a crush on her, and them just becoming like a little family. They really were great best friends and partners together, and then the whole Frenchie in prison thing happens, which, oh good lord, the Frenchie in prison thing, I fucking hated that. I'll be honest. I think that that was a really weak
It was just a
plot
good
line.
way to get him out of the story. I feel like that's what they did it. Like they didn't know what to do
Yeah.
with his character, so they're like, "Oh, we can make him feel regretful and he'll turn himself in and go to prison so we can have a few episodes without him."
Yeah, it just was like a weird continuation of the Colin plot line, which they did not do anything to make us care about that plot line.
Yeah. That
And
they like they fumbled so hard this season with some things. It was like a steep drop off writing wise in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, just thinking about what they could have done with, we'll use that plot line as an example, where they could have had Frenchie developing this relationship with Colin and not had it be a thing about him murdering the family. Meanwhile, he's starting his relationship with Kimiko in a platonic way. They're becoming closer, learning how to navigate their relationship, and Frenchie is kind of learning how to navigate a relationship that isn't with Kimiko romantically, which he has been like avoiding for what, 2.5 seasons. So even seeing it go in a direction like that would have been much better than all this random shit that just happens.
Yeah, you know what they could have done? Just have him have a normal, guiltless relationship with Colin, but Colin helps Frenchie understand the guilt that he's feeling over killing innocent people and have him like nurture him through that. But no, it has to be some weird twisted thing about him killing Colin's family for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, they had him at the beginning of the season clean a platonic relationship with Kamiko, and he just like goes downhill, and it feels like just the same way that people complain about Huey torture in this show. Justice for Frenchie. Like they're putting him through the ringer in this season. Not that Huey isn't also going through the ringer, mind you, but Frenchie is just,
Huey more so, I think.
yeah, Huey for sure. He's both getting physically and emotionally tortured all throughout this season. It's hard to watch him in some of these, especially the Tech Night episode. That was so fucked up. Moving on with some of my other hot takes. The soup killing virus, they started this plot line in Gen V right at the end, and it just feels like an unfulfilled plot. It felt so central to the season, and then they just didn't use it. And I was not a fan of it. Like, what are we doing here? Why did we go through this whole season? We had so much of it devoted to getting a sample so that we could make it. We had like a whole episode. They broke Stan Edgar out of prison, and then they just don't use the virus. And maybe they could use it in the final season, but at this point, they've built it up for a whole season and then just gave us no payoff.
What the weird thing is like it's too potent and not potent enough. It's like it's gonna kill every single soup if you release it, except for Homelander, because it's not like it's like viral enough, but not like deadly enough or some shit. So it's like in a weird like I don't know stasis chamber or something where it's like, oh, we can't use it because it'll kill every soup. So that's like the moral issue, and then like we also like can't use it because even if we did it wouldn't kill Homelander, so we need to like make it more potent but less viral, and I don't know how they're ever going to do anything with that.
Yeah, I would have really rather had Butcher take out Newman with the virus and have it be the less potent version that would take out Newman but wouldn't start an apocalypse. I think that would have been like an interesting way to end the season. Um, but they had rip Newman apart with the Venom powers instead, which that it feels like they could have slotted a little bit of resolution and build up with the soup virus into that final episode that way.
Yeah.
I really loved how Sister Sage orchestrated pretty much the whole season. It was so phenomenal. The reveal right at the end that she did it just to see if she could, that was fantastic. I mean, it's I thought the character was done for, which was a shame because I was really enjoying Sister Sage, and then they bring her back at the end, and you can tell that she is going to be huge in season 5 in that last act of the series, and I'm really excited to see what they do with her.
Yeah, I feel like Sister Sage was one of the well written characters this season, actually. I think she got a lot of great scenes, and her parts of the story were very interesting, so it's good to see she's getting the credit she deserves. And I think having a more mastermind character, less like, oh, I'm just gonna go and kill everything in my way, is like a very interesting character in the boys. Considering how like usually that's how the boys have to act, more mastermindy, while the soups are just like doing whatever the fuck they want. But yeah.
Yeah, they're having to fight someone on their level a little bit more. When they're just fighting the soups, it's like, okay, yeah, these guys are really strong and powerful, but they're all egomaniacs and really stupid, so, you know, we can get things done. But with Sister Sage, it just adds that level of organization to Homelander's side that he didn't have before. Just doing erratic shit. All right, and Chase, do you have any hot takes from this season?
Um, just like I feel like the whole season as a whole is a step below the rest of the seasons. Don't think that's really a hot take though. Um, Also, I felt like it would have been more interesting to have Butcher uh become more of like a father like role model for Ryan than back to his like I want to kill all soups in the world no matter what character.
Yeah, I think that that would have been a good deviation from the comics too, to have maybe Butcher be that caring person and try and bring Ryan into the fold instead of going the full genocidal soup route. Which I I think that they did good work getting him to that point, but it still would have been interesting to see Ryan flip. I really wanted Ryan to come over to the boys' side at the end of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Any other hot takes from this season before we move on to some character discussion?
Nope.
All right. Well, I think we are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. And we're back for a discussion of our characters in The Boys season 4. Let's start off with a character who she was a little bit rocky at the beginning of the season. They weren't doing much with her, but she went on to be one of the standouts in this season. Some of the best performances, in my opinion. Starlight. I think that her new powers are great, but it does feel like her personality is changing in a way that doesn't feel like the Annie we knew anymore. And that's okay, but the writers haven't really put in the work to make us see her change as a person to justify her actions being different in this season. I just the through line of this season has kind of been that the writers are making big changes to characters without really explaining it or giving us the story of how they got to that point.
Yeah, it feels like they just like threw in her backstory as being like a shitty person, and it's like that would work for like a lot of characters, but I feel like it doesn't work for her because her whole thing has been like I was raised to like see right from wrong, and like like I won't allow like this to like go on because this is like bad things are happening, and I like I can stop it, so like I will stop it. And then like her character like turns out to be like, oh yeah, actually you were just a shitty person until you got into the seven. Like I don't I don't understand what the fuck is going on. But
Yeah, it's like character assassination.
Yeah, they, they really are just like they're like, you know what, it'd be a sick turn of events if it turns out the like one genuinely good person in the show is just a shitty fucking person actually. Like, okay, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was a little bit ridiculous. It and then they had some stuff where Starlight was like upset with Huey for his own abuse.
For cheating on her? Like, okay, bro. Like,
The Starlight that we saw in the first like 3 seasons would not have been mad at him for that. Like it just feels like they've done a 180 with her character for real. And let's move on to Butcher. We've already given him a little bit of airtime, but Butcher giving into the Kessler parasite, going full suicide mode. It's a good place to have him as like the final villain of the show. His character is going to be starting this final season in a really dark place, and I don't think that he's going to come back from it and be the ultimate hero of the show. He's gone down this path, and I think he's got to stick to it now.
yeah, I feel like it's fully within his character. I'm not angry or upset with what they've done with Butcher. I just thought it would have been more interesting for them to make him actually take the good guy route. But I mean, from the first like minute you see this guy in season one, you're like, this guy's not a great person, is he? This guy's shady as fuck. So like, this is not like a surprise to me, and I don't think Butcher's character and how it's going is a product of bad writing.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that they showed us even more that even before Becca was kidnapped by Vought and Butcher has started his crusade to figure out what's going on at Vought. Um, Even when he was with Becca, he was a fucking awful husband. He was cheating on her all the time. He was never around, and it took her leaving for him to really like appreciate his wife in any meaningful way. So it's just shown to us over and over again that this guy is he's an asshole. And that little glimmer of humanity that we saw in him when he was trying to bring Ryan over, that's not the real him. Joe Kessler is the real him, I think.
Yeah, it's like all the good things he was doing was him trying to make all the wrongs he's done to Becca right, and then he like couldn't go through with it, and he just fell back on his natural tendencies.
Yeah, it's very sad, but well within his character. Oh, poor Huey. Huey. This man has been through the ringer over and over and over again this season. Every episode is like a new injustice visited upon Huey and his poor psyche. Get that man a therapist. He needs a therapist more than anyone I've ever seen in film and television. He's been abused. His dad died, forgot who he was. He was abused in Tech Knight's dungeon. He was tricked by a shapeshifter. It's just thing after thing with this poor fucking guy.
Yeah, Burrow's having a bad, I would say day, but it's multiple days. Burrow's just having a bad time in general.
Bad, like, year and a half. Yeah. So, Huey, other than that, his character hasn't changed much this season, in my opinion. I don't know if you have anything different to say about that, Chase.
No, I feel like his character is definitely like season two, just Huey again, which I think is fine though. I feel like his character is mostly flat throughout the show, except for season three when he starts taking Temp V like a meth head. But other than that, he's pretty much the same guy.
Yeah. I think that the one interesting thing that we sort of saw with him in terms of personal growth this season was his interaction with A Train, where he kind of forgives A Train. Not really forgives, but because I don't know if you
I
really
feel like
can
he.
for.
I feel like he forgives him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. In my head, I'm like, how do you forgive someone for that? But it does seem like Huey genuinely is like, okay, you've done enough where you're at least starting to make a positive impact, and he sort of recognizes A Train for doing that. I Speaking of A Train, I was fucking shocked that guy made it through the season.
Yeah, I thought they were setting him up for death for the longest time too.
Yeah, for every single time we saw him, he was doing something like noble or good, and that's always the sign of a evil character that's sort of redeeming themselves, becoming in fucking 6 feet under. But I'm glad that he made it to the end. He could very much play a big role in season 5 if they wanted to go that direction. But I hope he finds some peace. I hope that he's able to reconnect with his family. I want A Train to have a good ending, even though kind of hated him at the start of this series. He's really grown on me throughout the past 4 seasons.
Yeah, he definitely takes a U turn with his character. And it's crazy to think that he is one of the less offensive heroes in the seven.
Yeah, I mean, considering the first time we meet him, he fucking turns Robin into sidewalk soup. We, yeah, it's crazy
That's
that they end.
fucking crazy.
So, anyways, considering that's the first time we see him, it's surprising that he's one of the least offensive members of the Seven and the person that we kind of resonate with the most on there after Annie gets kicked off. Uh, Speaking of the Seven, we should talk a little bit about this minor character, Homelander. God, every season this guy just loses his mind more and more and gets so much more ridiculous. This man is fucking insane and ridiculous. His interactions with Firecracker at the end when he's like telling her to go further down the table because she was coughing, and then he like puts her breast milk aside because he doesn't want to drink it anymore. Oh my god, they do such a good job at making this guy like a comic relief character as he is a horrifying villain.
Yeah, the way he just like treats Firecracker is just so funny to me.
Yeah, and God, Anthony Starr. I hope the rumors about him being like Homelander in some ways in real life aren't true, but just from watching this show, he plays the character a little bit too well. He just plays this sociopathic, broken man so well, and I don't think that I could imagine anyone else in this role.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think he quite literally is the greatest on-screen villain actor we've seen in TV shows.
Now
He
that is a hot take.
I think he I don't I think it's not because Homelander is the greatest villain. I think Anthony Starr does the greatest portrayal of him. Like I don't think I've ever seen someone play a villain so perfectly before.
Yeah, he just is that character. Anthony Starr is going to be Homelander for ever and ever. When people read the comics now, they're going to imagine Anthony Starr in the place of the little comics. And yeah, it's just he's that guy. And other than that, I don't know that there's much to say about his character development this season. He just goes further and further into the insane rabbit hole of losing his goddamn mind every time we see him, and it's it's not getting any better for him. He's not making a recovery the way A Train is, that's for fucking sure.
It's not possible. It's not possible for Homelander to ever redeem himself.
Yeah, that would what if they just like flipped the script on us from the comics and made Homelander the final hero of the series. He flip sides Ryan.
He can't ever be a hero. He literally cannot, dude. He can't undo all of the horrible shit he's done. I mean, A Train can't undo his shit either, but I feel like there are ways for him to repent. Like,
Yeah.
A Train has killed exponentially less people, done exponentially less harm than Homelander in every way.
And don't forget about A Train ending ending racial tension in the US with his Kylie Jenner commercial.
No, Kylie Jenner was inspired by that.
She was. She wishes she was A Train.
A Train did it first.
Nothing better than the original. All right, Sister Sage. Speaking of Homelander, it's impossible to talk about Homelander without talking about his relationship with Sister Sage, because she was really the one driving him this season, whether he was aware of it or not. Everything that happened, from his appearances on television to his supporters doing certain things or this or that, Sister Sage was really running the show for Homelander, and he had a hard time with that. Homelander did not like the idea that someone wouldn't agree with him 24/7.
Yeah, Homelander wants everyone to be subservient to him, and he pretends like he hates yes men, but that's what he wants. He wants everyone to think and say that he's the smartest and that he knows best. When, like, obviously he's not the smartest and he doesn't know best, and Sister Sage is the smartest and she knows best. But or I don't know if she knows best considering she's not a good person either. But um
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, maybe she knows best. She's just not doing best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, it's so fucked up to me the way that Sister Sage just did all of this to see if she could. I mean, shit. That
I mean,
it's
what do you
just fucked
expect? She
up.
lobotomizes herself to watch uh shows that would bore her usually. So it's not that crazy that she would toy with like the most powerful beings on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's fitting for sure. You got to do something to entertain yourself. At a certain point, is lobotomy really worth it? You know, got to find other ways to entertain yourself.
I mean, I don't know. You're the one who has one, so
Oh, really? I've got a lobotomy? That would explain a lot. All right, let's move on to Newman. Um, R.I.P. to one of the best villains in the series. Outing her as a soup on live TV, another fucking crazy Homelander move from this season. And then Queen got ripped apart by Butcher's tentacles, and loved her as a character. Sad to see her go, but her story ended in a good place. I think that her arc this season was very fulfilling in my mind.
yeah, her character was actually quite enjoyable for the most part this season.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the way that at the end she's trying to make a deal with the boys and is almost successful in that. I enjoy that she's not a straight up evil person in the way that Homelander is, but is doing things a little bit more because of circumstances and maybe some strange mental desire to be powerful, or yeah, I don't know. But she was one of the more compelling characters this season. She was written really well throughout the whole thing, and any scene that she was present in, I knew it was going to be good. I knew that we were going to get some nice information. It was never boring and it was never pointless when she was on screen.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Um, Are there any other characters we want to touch on before we move into some of the cinematography, special effects, themes, ideas, stuff like that?
No, I think we've covered all the important players.
Yeah. Um, so let's take a quick little respite from the plot and the story to talk about some cinematography, some special effects. I never noticed a single problem with the special effects this season. Everything kind of felt on point, looked great to me. Amazon never really disappoints with their special effects, though. Well, unless it's the Wheel of Time season one. Um, but yeah, especially not their marquee shows like The Boys. They don't really fuck things up with that. They always do a good job.
Yeah, I feel like the boys, the effects are so good that it's almost like immersive. Like they look so real. I would expect all of the powers basically to look like that in real life, and I think that's the point. So they really hit home with the special effects.
Yeah, I mean you know it's good when you're not noticing it because clearly if you're not noticing it then it's doing its job and immersing you into that other reality, which is great. Um, did you have any other thoughts on how it was shot, any of the production details, the sets, things like that?
Um, I don't know. I think it was all great, cinematography wise. I guess one of the things I thought was really funny was how well they did the venom shit under Butcher's skin. Like how it really did look like something was moving around in his veins under his skin.
Oh, that was freaky as fuck. Ooh, that made my skin crawl every time I watched that thing crawling around in him. Ooh, good God. It reminds me of like leeches or it's- no, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Illithid from Baldur's Gate. That's kind of what it
Oh,
was giving to
that's
me.
exactly what it's like actually.
Yeah,
Except isn't that
that
shit just like in your brain?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oof. All right. So let's talk about some of the themes and ideas of this season. Chase, to what extent did the ends justify the means in a situation like this? Sorry about that, folks. We had a little technical issue on our end with our recording, and but we're back. And so, Chase, to what end
Yeah.
ends? Oh wait, fuck. To what extent do ends justify the means? That's what I was trying to get out of my
Oh
mouth.
my god, I gave a whole darn spiel, but my mic was busted. So I said I do not think genociding all of the soup community just to kill like the top 1% of soups that are the actual danger and evildoers is valid.
Wait, are you trying to talk? I think your microphone cut out again.
Yeah, fuck you. I
I
can
mean, yeah.
see it, buddy.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's the only valid opinion to have is that Butcher is going way too far with this shit. I think if you're in favor of genociding all the soups, like you're just an asshole. But uh, yeah, I there's no justifying that in any context. So I mean, Butcher is fucked up. He's gonna be a villain if he continues going down this path. Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another major theme of this season, especially at the end, was politics being controlled by the elite, whatever. Yeah, that was kind of the whole thing with Vought ending up being in control of the government via Homelander at the end. Just the boys has always been a lot about corporate greed and what happens when companies are unchecked, stuff like that. Um, that's always been a pretty big part of the show, which is so ironic because the show is produced by Amazon. Another major theme in this season, there was a lot to do with, it felt like, class divides, um, soups and people without power. It just, there was a lot of allusions to those things. They weren't really front and center in the season, but there was definitely a little bit at play when they were writing these scripts. Chase, you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think we kind of get a lot of the themes from the show, it, especially this season, shared to us through like the firecracker convention. Like, um, we get like a lot of fanaticism. I would say is like a theme or idea we see in this show. Um, and like you wrote in the notes, a lot of crazy shit that mirrors the real world in, I don't know, like misinformation and such stuff like that.
Yeah, just the way that things spread, like misinformation spreads, and conspiracy theories, and populist leaders with very cult-like followings. I mean, it's all very reminiscent of the real world. Not even reminiscent, like it's a direct and very clear parody. Anything that you see in the show, you can point to something in real life and be like, "Oh, that's what they're trying to say." Which I feel like this season was definitely way more forward with that type of messaging. Didn't they've never been a subtle show, which I feel like people were missing points of the show beforehand. But yeah, I don't think it's ever been a subtle show. It's always been very obvious in its messaging, and I appreciate that. I think that the satire they do of the real world is always very funny.
Yeah, usually it's very, very spot on. So I enjoy it. I think people who are upset about it have poor media literacy because it's been in the show since season one. It's just, it's definitely more out there now. They're doing a lot more this season. They're being a lot bolder with it, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, they're doing a lot more with the characters mirroring like real life stuff, and not just the overall themes, because the themes have always been there. But I think that the direct lines that you can draw between real world figures in this season is definitely a lot stronger. Um, should we move on to some most and least favorite moments of the season to start getting towards the end here?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a most favorite moment or two from this season, Chase?
Um, I think my most favorite moment is probably when Butcher brings the guy into like his garage or wherever he had him like chained up, the scientist guy. I thought that was like a really funny and unexpected turn of events, honestly. Uh, when especially because he cut off his leg. Um, like the fact that he had kidnapped him, I thought that was a very funny moment. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah,
That's probably
it
my
it
most
was
favorite
it was even funnier when he's laying there and he sees Butcher like talking to nobody.
yeah, it's like, God damn it, I got captured by a tweaker.
That
But
was
yeah,
so good.
least favorite moment. I was gonna say probably Frenchie reliving his past arc, but worse. But now it's probably the Frenchie Kimiko relationship stuff.
Yeah, we already talked about this, but such a weird choice that they made there at the end. Just we need to pick a lane here for sure.
Yeah,
I swear to
that.
God, if they start season 5 and they do this shit again, where they're like, "So we can't be in a relationship," I'm gonna throw a brick at my TV.
I will throw a tantrum and a fit. There will be issues. Another least favorite moment is um probably one of the times the deep is having sex with the damn octopus.
Yeah, that was. I don't know why they decided. They just keep making this man fuck sea animals on screen. We don't really need to be seeing all that.
Bro is actually obsessed with Octosi.
Yeah, first it was Timothy, who he fucking ate, and now it's oh, what was her name? What was that octopus's
I
name?
don't know, but he killed her, right?
Yeah, he got like angry at her and broke her fucking fish tank.
Which
Oh my
doesn't make
god.
sense because can't octopuses or octopi, however you say the plural, can't they like live outside of the water for like a fairly long amount of time? And then also, I'm pretty sure they can like she could have climbed under that door. Like I think they can squeeze in really tight spaces.
Yeah.
But
Also, why was she completely fine when she was having sex with the deep, like in his bed?
that's what I'm
But
saying. Like, isn't that even harder to breathe? You got a cock in your mouth. Okay. But like but you know what I mean, right?
words of wisdom. Words of wisdom.
I mean, is anyone arguing with my point there? Am I wrong?
I guess not. But any other least least or most favorite points before I start my top list?
Probably Ashley rubbing her discharge on Huey's face.
Yeah, that was that's part of my I'll go into my least with that. The Huey torture, especially when he was in Tech Knight's sex dungeon. That was just too much. Like you're doing too much to this guy right now. We didn't need all that. He did not have to go through that for the plot to move forward.
No, he did actually.
Yeah, well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Not only
But
did he have to, but they had to make an episode of it.
a
Wasn't that like the
whole
whole episode?
it was way too much of it.
It
That's
was
for
like
damn sure.
I feel like it was a large portion of it. I felt like I was watching him get abused for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, he was. They showed us a lot. They start off with him fucking sitting on a chocolate cake, and then they end with him being full on just traumatized for life. Not that he hasn't been traumatized a million other ways this season too, but this was particularly this was one of the rougher ones. This and his dad were the two standout Huey torture moments this season. I would say that my other least moment it was them doing nothing with the soup killing virus at the end of this season. They could have done something to get us excited about maybe them using it next season. The way that they ended things with that virus, it just makes me think that they're going to abandon the plot line, but I don't know. Now on to some of the better things that were in this season, some of my favorites. Joe Kessler being in Butcher's Head. As soon as he appeared on screen, we were kind of speculating that he wasn't real. The internet was abuzz with theories about him being a figment of Butcher's imagination. And it ended up being even a step further than that. Not only is Kessler in Butcher's head, but Kessler is a brain tumor that got shot up with compound V when Butcher took the V, and now it's a parasite in his body. And I think that was a really cool direction for them to go in. It was an interesting way for them to handle the transition from Butcher taking Temp V to being sick to needing him to stick around for another season and be a more villainous character. I think that the way that they handled that in retrospect all works very well for me as a viewer.
I would have to agree.
My other most, I loved that they brought Stan Edgar back for that episode on the farm. I thought that was really funny. I just love Giancarlo Esposito as an actor, and so seeing him come back and be that sort of menacing on-screen presence without being a physically intimidating person is just awesome. He's really great at that, at being intimidating without needing to be a vast physical presence. It's always cool to watch him play the villain.
Yeah, I think he's a great actor and he portrays characters like that very well, I think.
Yeah, always the brains of the operation, but still scary nonetheless. Some comparisons and connections to other media. I mean, there were just so many pop culture and real world references in this season that if we sat here going through them, it would take us all day. But I mean, to just go through a few of the superhero comparisons, we had Huey dressing up to pretend to be Web Weaver, and Web Weaver was obviously like a Spider Man trope, a really disgusting Spider Man trope, but a Spider Man trope nonetheless. Butcher got some Venom like powers. And then obviously we had our other characters who have been around for seasons that have connections to other characters. But Chase, did you notice any other new characters who are kind of a version of another comic book?
No, not really. I mean, I guess like Starlight's new powers are like kind of like Captain Marvel if I had to make a comparison, but otherwise no.
Yeah. I didn't know who like Firecracker was meant to be like superhero wise. I think that she's more an allusion to real world like political figures and QAnon and stuff like that than she was meant to be an actual superhero parody. Um, I feel like there's got to be a Sister Sage, one for one somewhere in Marvel or DC, but I can't think of anyone who fits the bill.
Well, in Marvel, I know like the smartest person alive is Reed Richards, so I don't think that's the connection.
Yeah,
Um, and then in DC, it's Batman or
yeah.
like
Oh yeah, and Tech Knight is supposed to be like kind of a Batman
yeah,
character.
Tech Knight is Batman, but instead of like being obsessed with his childhood trauma, he's obsessed with like fucking holes and he's a freak knight. He's a weirdo.
Freak Knight. Bro, when the butler turned on him, that had me dying.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god.
Guy had had enough, and
Dude,
rightfully so.
I still get the TikTok clips of them being like, and 300 million to Black Lives Matter, and then it switches to him and it goes slow mo, and he goes, not those people.
Yeah, oh my god. Fucking Tech
Unreal,
Knight.
dude.
I thought he was a weirdo when he showed up in Gen V, but the boys, as always, cranks it up to 11 on fucking everything. Gotta love it. Yeah, this season obviously had a lot of connections to real life politics, which we're not going to spend too much time on that. You get the picture on that, but they're definitely a lot more obvious in this season, and I don't mind it at all. Chase, any thoughts before we get into some feedback?
I think we covered everything.
So let's get into some of our feedback. We got a
We
few pieces
really
of
got a lot of feedback. Holy crap. I'm happy to hear that everyone's enjoying our pod and sending us stuff to talk about.
yeah. Yeah, we got some good pieces of feedback here. First off, let's start off with Nancy, who is a very big part of the Lorehounds community. Nancy helps out with some of the administrative stuff over at the Lorehounds and is just all around a great member of the community. So thank you for writing in, Nancy. I'm sorry it took us so long. For everyone who wrote in, sorry it took us so long to get to your guys' feedback. But thank you nonetheless for being listeners and engaging with us. We really do appreciate it. Nancy says, "Hi everyone. I'm a new listener to your pod. I watched the first episode of Fallout, but it wasn't for me. I did hear you promote The Boys with the Lorehounds and decided to check it out. I was hooked right away. So the last week or so, I binged the first three seasons and just finished the first episodes of season four. Today, I listened to your first episode of the season. First of all, my compliments on your coverage. I thought you did a great job. Thank you, Nancy. I love that sometimes you had different opinions about plot and characters. I think that's good for the listener. Forces us to think about where we land. I'm so glad someone feels the same way I do about Frenchie. Couldn't they come up with something different for him? I hope that he opens up to Kamiko. I have so much sympathy for Butcher after the episode where he has those memories of his childhood and then his brother committing suicide. Wow, I'd be very screwed up as well. Yeah. Yeah, Butcher goes through it in his childhood. I'm a bit confused about where they're going with Ryan. I thought after a good game of foosball and a good talk with Butcher, not to mention his horror at killing the poor actor, he'd run from Homelander as fast as his soup legs would take him. And Victoria's daughter, what kind of superpower is it to have killer tentacles coming out of your mouth? Victoria will be really sorry for what she did if the Deep finds out.
Oh no! No! No tentacle is safe from the deep.
That got me. That was very good. That was the first time I've read this email, so that caught me off guard. Nancy, listener from Canada. Thank you so much for writing in, Nancy, and for giving us a good laugh with that one. Yeah, I mean, let's start off with some of this stuff. I think that I'm glad that you agree with us about Frenchie and Kamiko because it's an opinion that I haven't seen a lot of on the internet, and so
And
I
you're
don't know where a
always
lot
on
of
the internet.
wow, I am not always on the internet. I live a very um, present life. I live in the moment, you could say.
Yeah, on the internet.
You suck. But I I haven't seen any of these opinions like stated too often on the internet. So it's good to know that some people are with us and are thinking the same thing because it's hard to get a read occasionally. Um, I have a lot of sympathy for Butcher as well, but at the same time, I have a hard time liking him anymore. He's a really compelling character, but I'm kind of hating him in a good way though. I think that the show is kind of wanting us to start to fall out of favor with Butcher as a character.
Yeah, I think what happens to him, or what happened to him as a kid, and what happened to his brother and his relationship with his brother really fucking sucks. And his dad was a damn piece of shit. And Homelander, or not Homelander, sorry. Sorry about that, Butcher. He's probably angry that I called him Homelander. but but Butcher's definitely like got lasting trauma and is definitely really fucked up about those things. Um so it like kind of makes you feel for the guy, but at the same time like he's also like a piece of shit. So like you're like dang, like that I kind of understand why he's like an asshole, but at the same time like he's becoming the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another example of him and Homelander being two sides of the same coin where they
Hurt
both
people
had
hurt
these
people.
exactly, and they both had their awful childhoods in different ways, and now they're both doing fucked up shit because they have unresolved trauma that they are not going to ever be able to work through. So it's a really good
It's that
through line in the show.
generational trauma.
It really is. It really is. Vought did a number on both of them. I mean, when you think about it, Vought really is the cause of a lot of their trauma. Not Butcher's childhood, but some of Butcher's recent trauma. Butcher's childhood was a different,
I was
different
gonna say,
fault.
did I miss something? Did his dad work
No,
at Vought? Like,
no, no.
I don't think his
Different.
dad had a damn job, man.
No, I was thinking more about like what happened with Becca for that side of
Oh
Butcher.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, um, I'm also confused about where they're going with Ryan. I have no clue what they're gonna do with him. I fucking hate that they had Ryan kill Grace. That poor kid. I wanted to see him at least have a chance at not feeling guilty about everything for the rest of his life.
Well, I was convinced at the beginning of the season that Ryan really was gonna like turn to the good guys side. I think I talked about it a little bit in our other episodes. Um, but he just keeps making mistakes and then like staying with Homelander, the guy who keeps basically forcing him to make the mistakes. I don't understand. I mean, he is a kid, so he's not
Yeah.
really fully responsible, but still.
Yeah, and I think that we had a good moment where we saw that he would be able to stand up for himself when he was at the puppet show, doing his little like Christmas special or whatever, and he stands up and makes his announcement, and Butcher sees that on TV. I think that was a really good moment where they could have worked with that and shown us Ryan's side where he has that defiance in him. Like he's a powerful ass soup. He can think for himself. Thank you so much for writing in, Nancy. We hope that you continue to listen now that we're back from our very extended hiatus. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the season. And if you want to write in, let us know what you thought about the season as a whole. We would love to hear from you. So thank you.
Yeah,
Now let's
thanks to
move.
our goat Nancy.
Yes. And
Excuse
now.
me, sir. Are you gonna let me talk? Oh my
Whoa.
god.
Whoa. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ah, no, you already ruined it.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our very good friend of the podcast, Pelly. Pelly has been a longtime writer inner during this season of The Boys, and we are very lucky to have Pelly writing in for our last episode. So, without further ado, let's get into his email. Hi there, my V addicted friends in my ears. When I first heard of the virus, I thought it was a WMD, that it was airborne. Learning that it is something you inject does change things a bit. Some of the things related to it in the previously on I don't recognize. I assume that's Gen V stuff. For whatever reason, I didn't watch it as it aired, and I am, as of this episode, rejecting it because it seems that it is required watching after all of this. I am at 11 minutes in and even more convinced that Sage knows who leaked the footage. It didn't run itself out is deliberate. I can't see Giancarlo Esposito in anything without thinking Gus Fring. I'm really enjoying, without getting too political, the hypercapitalism scenes, both the digs at Marvel and the general WWDC E3 CES vibes. It being fiction does help, but put the above mentioned real life events into perspective how ridiculous they are. All that's missing is a look at under your chair, it's a Vought box on me moment to really tie the bow. Oh boy, Homelander is doing the cool uncle approach, and I think it might work. Butcher won't be able to give him infinite freedom because he actually cares. This won't end well. Animal Farm is pretty different from how I remember it. I honestly thought the Campbell family was going to be an easy family drama, not that demented phasing was going to happen. It was a good and sad ending to this chapter. This is already running along. See you guys for episode 6. Thank you for writing in, Pelly. All right, let's get right into it. Chase, where do you want to start?
Um, I don't remember. Did they not do a good job integrating the Gen V stuff into the
I
episodes?
I think that some of it, if you didn't see Gen V, would have been a little bit confusing.
I
I
think
think
maybe
that
like the characters like Sam and like yeah, probably.
yeah, and I do think that the soup virus is kind of a big thing to have introduced in another show, especially considering how much they used it in this season.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair.
Yeah, but other than that, I think they did a fairly good job at separating the two things. It didn't feel like required to me. It felt more like if you know, you know. It just kind of added to the story, but I can see how in some places it definitely would have given that vibe of like making it inaccessible to certain viewers, which is a shame because it was a really great show on its own. And yeah, I think that the interconnected show thing is maybe a mistake that too many franchises are falling into these days. They're all falling into the
Yeah.
Marvel trap.
Yeah. Um, and I think about the virus, I think it's more like HIV than an airborne disease. I think they were talking about how it could be transmitted through bodily fluid, right?
Yeah, I think that's how they said it. It can spread when it's not the crazy viral airborne version that they started talking about later on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that the idea of it being both, like it could be just an injection type of thing, or it could be that airborne like weapon of mass destruction. Um, it makes it interesting, but it also makes it kind of confusing if the virus can just be whatever they feel like making it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and about I can't see Giancarlo Esposito in anything without thinking Gus Fring. Yeah, I can't either. Every time I see him, whether it's in this or in The Mandalorian, I'm thinking about Breaking Bad just because he embodied that character. Yeah. Um, the hypercapitalism scenes, yeah, I agree. Those were done so well because every time they showed one of those conventions, they even did a direct parody of the Marvel phases where they were showing like the next three phases of Vought. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was really funny to me. Um
Yeah.
and I agree with the Homelander cool uncle approach. He's really just letting Ryan do whatever the hell he wants. And I mean, Butcher tries to treat him like an actual father would or an actual responsible adult would. I mean, as much as Butcher can act like a responsible adult. But yeah, so of course Ryan's I guess yeah, that's a good point for why Ryan always runs home to Homelander because he loves freedom as all kids do.
Yeah. I do think a certain part of Ryan recognizes that Butcher is trying to do the right thing for him because, he spent most of his life with Becca as his mother, and I'm sure that she was a good, like, and present mother. And then he was with Grace Mallory for a while, who I can only assume is kind of like very structured and trying to do the right thing for Ryan in raising this incredibly superpowered person. And then you've got Butcher trying to like take over that this season. And yeah, kids love it when adults let them do whatever the hell they want. So the promise of Homelander seems a little too good, and finally Homelander starts to exert a little bit more influence and control over Ryan in the last few episodes. And I don't know if that's going to sit well with Ryan. I don't know if it would have sit well with Ryan had the whole Grace Mallory thing not happened. Chase, do you have anything to say about the the Campbell family episode in the hospital? Anything about Huey's dad?
Just that it felt weird for them to end it with just them like basically injecting him with like the thing that would kill him. I forget what it was. It just like put him to sleep, right? And then
Yeah, I think it was basically like euthanasia.
yeah. Um I felt like it was kind of weird for them to have that whole like arc almost, and then they were just like, okay, yeah, we're actually just gonna kill you, and actually instead of just letting him die in the first place.
Yeah, it was also weird that they did that and then they didn't have his mother around really anymore.
Okay. That's what I was gonna say too. It was like as soon as they did that, we saw his mother. I think for like maybe like 5 minutes after that, and then it was like she was gone.
Yeah, which
Like
I liked their dynamic.
yeah, but I don't know. Like It was just so weird. I'm like thinking back. It was like that was completely gone from my head because they literally like chopped it out of the rest of the story for the rest of the season. Oh my god, that like reminded me. Yeah. What the heck happened to that, dude? They actually did nothing with that.
Yeah, I don't really understand it. They had Huey's mom there as a character, and then in the last like 3 episodes, three was it 3 or 4 episodes? I don't know, but she just like wasn't a thing anymore, and it was a little bit upsetting because why did you introduce this character just to get rid of her the second she no it feels like the Frenchie thing where they just didn't know what to do with the character, and instead of finding a good way to write in Huey's mom or write in Frenchie into those few episodes, they were like, well, Huey's in prison, and or I'm not Huey, fucking Frenchie's in prison.
Huey's in prison.
Huey's in
No, you know what's
prison.
crazy? You know what's crazy?
What?
Her whole thing was like, I wasn't there for you as a kid, but I'm here now. And then now she's not here.
Yeah, because
What the
Huey's
what the heck, man?
yeah, because Huey's dad was always there for him in the show, so it's not like
Yeah, and
it
now
would.
he's dead and she's fucking gone. So he has no one, bro. What the fuck? Rip
Yeah,
Huey.
R.I.P. Huey. More Huey abuse once again. Jeez, that poor guy. All right, well, let's see. Was there anything else? Yeah, I think that is it in terms of feedback. You guys, thank you so much for writing in. Once again, we're sorry that it took us a little while to get to your feedback and get a new episode out, but we do appreciate your patience. We appreciate you writing in to be a part of the conversation because it makes this a whole lot more fun. So, if you are tuning in to our final episode of our boys coverage until we come back for next season, of course, then thank you for listening. Chase, do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, I want to say sorry for the long hiatus, everyone. We did promise a weekly show and we did not deliver. And we're sorry for that. And we also want to say thank you to the Lorehounds for sticking with us and being very understanding of our circumstances.
Yeah, thank you so much for sticking with us through it all and giving us this platform because yeah, we've been leaving this podcast on the back burner while other things have been going on for the past like month and a half. Specifically, I've been delaying the podcast. It's more my fault than anyone else's. We of course we've had some mutual scheduling problems, but it was more my fault that this has been delayed a little bit. But we are hopefully going to be back now to some regularly scheduled podcasts. We're gonna try and re-record the Elden Ring podcast that we were wanting to get out because some strange things happened with the audio files. Some what did happen with with the audio files? I remember there was
I
some kind
think
of problem with it.
I think what happened is you said we could leave the like what is this Zencaster
Yeah,
before the thing had like fully downloaded
yeah,
the audio files.
yeah. So
But yeah, once everyone has listened to this episode, just go into the Discord and say Aaron's a piece of shit. We'll know you've listened, and it'll be a nice, nice little um, ego boost for us to know that people are listening still.
yeah, you can even at me when you tell me I'm a piece of shit. We mentioned that we were thankful to the Lorehounds for sticking with us while we were on this hiatus. So let's give a quick shout out to a lot of the programming that they have going on right now. The main Lorehounds feed is going to be covering the Rings of Power coming up soon. That's the show that really started them off, and that's coming back in just a couple weeks. And I think that everyone over in the Lorehounds community is getting really hyped to start talking about that again. So go over there. They've got a preview podcast out for the trailer, and they're always having great conversations about movies and television. Check them out. And over On the affiliate side, there is, of course, Rings and Rituals, Will Shift Dust, Properly Howard Movie Review. The Severance podcast is going to be coming back at a later date, once Severance is sort of figured out and they have a final release date for that on Apple TV Plus. And of course, the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast. And links to all of those shows are going to be in our show notes. And once again, thank you all so much for listening, and we hope to see you in the next episode.